KSJE and the Farmington Public Library present Cuentos Hahne and Tales.
Hello, my name is Ray, and I am from the Farmington Public Library. Today, I'm going to read to you several stories from this series called Tadpole's Fairy Tale Twist. The first book I'm going to read is called Rapunzel and the Prince of Pop by Karyn Gorman. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, the Prince of Pop was driving through the forest. All of a sudden, he heard the most enchanting voice. He was surprised to discover that the voice belonged to a fair maiden who lived in the highest tower of a dark castle. The prince could not see a way to reach the girl until he saw a horrible old witch approach. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair!" called the witch. All of a sudden, a braid of golden locks fell from the window. The witch quickly climbed to the top. That night, the prince approached the tower and said, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair!" Once again, the braid appeared. The prince began to climb up until he reached the window. Who are you?" screamed Rapunzel. "Well, I'm the Prince of Pop," replied the prince. "I represent all of the faraway land top talent. I heard you sing, and you shall be my next big star." Each night, the prince would visit Rapunzel in her tower to develop her act. He coached her on her singing. He instructed her on her dancing. He lectured her on her star appeal. "You will make me millions," said the prince. "But first, we must free you from that awful witch." Rapunzel looked doubtful, but she did want to be free. The next night, the prince returned to free Rapunzel from the tower, but when he called out for her, she wasn't there. In desperation, the prince searched for his star all over town, but she was nowhere to be found. Then, one day, as the prince was passing by a recording studio, he tripped over something long and golden. The prince followed the hair until he saw "Rapunzel, I've been looking for you everywhere. Where have you been?" he screamed. "I've been busy," said Rapunzel. "I've been working on my second album." But, what about me?" sputtered the prince. "What about my millions?" "Sorry," shrugged Rapunzel, "but I've decided to go with another agent." "But hey, thanks for helping me out," said Rapunzel. The prince was speechless. And so, Rapunzel and her agent, who was the witch, lived happily ever after, and the Prince of Pop was left still searching for his next big star. The end. And that book was called Rapunzel and the Prince of Pop by Karyn Gorman. The next book I'm going to read is called The Boy Who Cried Sheep. Another book from the series of Tadpole's Fairy Tale Twist, and this one's written by Laura North. A young shepherd boy lived at the edge of a big forest full of wolves. Every day he walked through the forest with a girl who wore a little red hood. She was terrified of wolves. Little Red Riding Hood went to visit her granny. The boy went to look after his flocks of prize-winning sheep. The boy trained his show-jumping sheep every day. Little Red Riding Hood laughed at the boy and his jumping sheep. One day, the boy went to play a trick on her, to pay her back for laughing at him. The boy crept up behind Little Red Riding Hood and pretended to be a wolf. "Grrr," he said. "Help!" screamed Red Riding Hood, A group of villagers raced over. "It was only a joke," said the shepherd boy. The villagers grumbled and walked away. A few more days later, he did it again. Growl! This time, Little Red Riding Hood screamed even louder. "Help!" The villagers ran over, huffing and puffing. "It's just a joke," the shepherd boy said. The villagers all looked very annoyed. A few days later, the boy saw a real wolf at the door of Granny's cottage. "Wolf!" he shouted, but no one came. "Wolf!" he shouted louder. Still, no one came. The boy ran over to the villagers. "Help! Help! There's a wolf!" he shouted. "Stop playing tricks," the villagers said. The boy had cried "wolf" too many times. Now no one believed him. He ran over to Granny's cottage. The wolf was already in Granny's bed. "What should I do?" he thought. Then he had a brilliant idea. "Sheep!" he cried at the top of his voice. Within seconds, the sheep came running. "Pyramid!" shouted the boy. The sheep jumped on each other's shoulders. The boy climbed up on the sheep and onto the roof. "Sheep, follow me!" shouted the boy. He climbed inside the chimney. His sheep followed, one by one. Inside the cottage, the wolf was licking his lips. "What big teeth you have, Granny!" said Red Riding Hood. Suddenly, thud! The boy fell down the chimney and landed on the bedroom floor. The wolf looked up in surprise. Thump, thump, bah! A pile of sheep landed in the fireplace. "We're here to save you," said the boy. He turned to his sheep. "Sheep, attack!" he shouted. The sheep jumped on the wolf and sat on top of him. The boy and his sheep took the wolf to the villagers, who now believed his story. The shepherd boy had learned his lesson and never cried wolf again. But you can often hear him shout "sheep" as he put on a show for the villagers. The end. And that book was called The Boy Who Cried Sheep by Laura North. The next book I'm going to read is called Little Red Hen's Great Escape by Elizabeth Dale. The little red hen was worried. Bulldozers had arrived in the farmyard. Holes were being dug. Something bad was going on. She went to see Farmer Green. She knew he wouldn't tell her what was happening, so she had to be clever. "The builders are so busy," she clucked. "Can I help?" "You?" laughed the farmer. "How can you help?" "I can pick up sand and straw to keep it tidy everywhere," the little red hen said. "Okay," said the farmer. "Be helpful while you can." The little red hen trembled with fear. What did he mean? "Something terrible is happening," she told the pig, the lamb, and the duck. "Please help me find out what it is." "Not until 11 o'clock, snorted the pig. "No, thanks," laughed the lamb. "You're just a chicken," quacked the duck. "Lazy animals," thought the little red hen. "Something terrible's happening," she told the chickens. "Please help me find out what it is." "What are you, the little red hen?" clucked one. "No," said the little red hen. "But I think we're in danger. No one else will help me." The poor little red hen looked so worried. "Okay," said the chickens. "Excellent," clucked the little red hen. "Keep your beak to the ground, your eyes open wide, and report back to me." So the chickens scurried all over the farmyard. beaks to the ground and eyes wide open. So did the chicks. Trying not to look suspicious, some chickens pecked at the ground and some hopped around the farm. The little red hen tried to read the workers' plan. They all met back at the barn. "Those are piles of bricks," clucked one chick. "Steel doors," said another. "Big walls," said a third. "They're planning to keep every animal cooped up inside," cried the little red hen. "We must tell the others." "You need some ointment," snorted the pig. You're utterly quackers," quacked the duck. "You're mad," bleated the lamb. "Well, all the chickens are leaving," said the little red hen. And they did. The next day, the farmer came to fetch all the animals. "Come for a lovely walk," he told them. "Isn't he nice?" said the pig, the lamb, and the duck. The little red hen was just being silly. "In you go," smiled the farmer, opening the door. "Help!" cried the pig, the lamb, and the duck. The chicken suddenly appeared and pushed the farmer inside. Clunk went the door. Click went the key. "Hooray!" cried the pig, the lamb, and the duck, making faces at the farmer. To celebrate their escape, the animals had a wonderful party. "Everyone, please clean up," said the little red hen. All the animals did. After all, they learned their lesson that day. The end. And that was called Little Red Hen's Great Escape. The next book I'm going to read is called The Emperor's New Groove by Maureen Haselhurst. Enrico Emperi was a soccer star. He was the captain of Bootsville Ultras. He was so good, his fan nicknamed him the Emperor. Enrico loved soccer, but he loved clothes almost as much. He wore expensive designer suits, shoes, and shirts. Being rich and famous had made him a bit of a show-off. Everyone admired the Emperor, except for Frankie. Frankie was another star player for the Bootsville Ultras. But he knew he would never be as good as Enrico. He watched Enrico being interviewed on television. "He thinks he's so great," he muttered jealously. "Someone should teach him a lesson." The Bootsville Ultra had reached the final of the championship. "I need a new uniform, something really special," said Enrico. Designers from all over the world brought him all kinds of trendy outfits, but none of them was special enough for the Emperor. As he watched, Frankie thought of a trick. "I'll make Enrico look really silly," he thought, smiling. It was the day of the big match. Frankie took his present to Enrico. "I found an amazing uniform for you," Frankie said slyly. "It's very cool because only the top players can see it. It's invisible to all the other players." Enrico ripped open the box and looked inside. He couldn't see anything. He must be a terrible player. He stared sadly at the invisible uniform. He decided to just pretend he could see it. "It's great," he fibbed. "It's incredible," agreed the rest of the team, who couldn't see it either. Sass, the team's biggest fan, arrived and heard all about the amazing uniform. But the cruel trick didn't fool her. She had to put a stop to it. "I bet Frankie wishes he had a uniform like that," she said to Enrico. "Why don't you swap with him?" No way," yelled Frankie. But the team thought it was a great idea. So it was Frankie who went into the field dressed in the Emperor's invisible new uniform. The fans whistled and hooted with laughter. Frankie blushed and hid behind a goalpost. Sass found him a Bootsville Ultras banner to wear. Enrico grinned. "Come on, Frankie," he laughed. "We've got a game to win." All the crowd cheered as the Emperor kicked the ball up into the air, and the game was on. The end. And that book was called The Emperor's New Uniform. The next book I'm going to read is called The Princess Frog by Enid Richemont. Princess Miranda was tired of being a princess. She was tired of dressing up. She was sick of crowns and jewels. "You have to wear them," said the queen, "because you're a princess." "They give me such a headache," Miranda complained. One day, she went to see her godmother, who was a witch. "Turn me into something different," she begged. So Miranda's godmother turned her into a frog. Miranda liked being a frog. She liked floating on lily pads and leaping through the leaves and catching flies. One evening, she leaped into a park where a young gardener was working. "Look at that frog," the gardener said to his friend. "Let's catch it and keep it in the lily pond." The next morning, the gardener went to look at his very own frog. Miranda was leaping around. The gardener laughed. "If I find a girl as funny as you, I might even marry her," he joked. "Take me home," croaked Miranda. "A frog that speaks?" said the gardener, surprised. So the gardener took Miranda back to his cottage, and she sat beside him in a bowl. "If you give me a kiss," said Miranda, "I might even turn into a real princess." I don't kiss frogs," said the gardener, but he did it anyways. Suddenly, a pretty girl stood beside him, and he fell deeply in love. "Princess Frog, will you marry me?" he said, but Miranda wasn't quite sure. "No more dressing up?" she asked. The gardener laughed. "Jeans and a t-shirt for you, my love." "No more crowns?" said Miranda. "They give me such a headache." The gardener laughed. "No crowns here," he said. "And I'll need to keep leaping," Miranda added. "I'll build you a trampoline," promised the gardener. "Okay," said Miranda. "If I don't have a dress like a princess, I will marry you." And so they were married, though the queen did not approve of Miranda's wedding outfit, which was jeans and a t-shirt. And of course, they lived happily ever after. But every once in a while, Miranda slipped back into her frog skin and floated happily on a lily pond. The end. The last book I'm going to read is called Snow White Sees the Light by Karyn Wallace. Snow White put down her broom and sighed. Every day the 7 dwarfs left muddy boots in the kitchen and dropped their jackets on the floor. They never took off their hats. They only wanted to be fed. "What's cooking? I'm starving. Hurry up!" When they sat at the table, the dwarfs had terrible manners, and they never ever cleared the table or helped with the dishes. One day, Snow White lost her temper. "All you want is a housekeeper," she cried. "You don't care about me." The dwarfs stared at her in amazement. "We do adore you," said one. "You're the loveliest in the land," cried another. "We'd be lost without you," said a third. "Ha!" cried Snow White, but she went to put a pie in the oven anyways. Far away, a wise queen lived in a castle. She believed that everyone in her kingdom should share the cooking and cleaning. That way, everyone would be happy. One day, the queen picked up the magic mirror. "Mirror, mirror in my hand, does someone need me in my land?" "Snow White needs you," replied the mirror right away. "The 7 dwarfs are treating her like a slave." The queen visits Snow White. Why do you let the doors get away with it? She asked. They say they'd be lost without me, replied Snow White. We'll see about that, said the Queen. She cut a piece out of the magic apple. Pretend you've been poisoned and see what the doors say when they find you. That evening, the 7 dwarfs marched in the door, kicked off their boots, and shouted for their supper. When they saw Snow White lying on the floor with the apple beside her. Oh no! cried the dwarfs. That apple is poisoned! Snow White is dead! They all burst into tears. Who's going to cook our food? Who's going to clean our house? Who's going to wash our clothes? Snow White got up from the floor and gave the 7 dwarfs a long, hard stare. Wash your own clothes, she said. I'm leaving. And guess what? Snow White found a nice, considerate prince, and they lived happily ever after. The end. And that book was called Snow White See the Light. And again, the books that I've read today are from this series called Tadpole's Fairy Tale Twists. And they're all located at the Farmington Public Library. So for more information about programs that are coming up, you can visit our website at www.infoway.org. Thank you.
This has been Cuentos Hahne and Tales, presented by the Farmington Public Library and KSJE 90.9 FM.